What is going on with AAA games, guys? We know that the industry has been struggling a bit when it comes to putting out these big titles and not losing their asses on it. We've seen Assassin's Creed, we've seen a couple games drop recently that just absolutely shit their fucking pants. Blizzard Activision's part of it, EA, PlayStation, we got them all in here, so let's see what's going on. People feel AAA games are stagnant. This report proves it here from Bellular. Let's check this one out.
We all know the games industry is a bit weird right now, that it feels different. And we have had, coming off 2025, a year of amazing...
I will say it's not just the games industry, it's the movies industry too. Like entertainment industry in general feels stagnant. Like everyone's afraid to make something new. Everyone's trying to play it safe. Let's have Toy Story 5 instead of a new franchise. Let's have a second or third iteration or 20th expansion to a game instead of making some new IP. There's definitely that feeling out there that... the creativity feels like it's gone.
Amazing releases. Even with some of those amazing releases, you may wonder, how can the games industry be stagnant? Is it stagnant? There was a quote going through 2025, which was, "Survive through 25." It was a mantra for some indie devs, even for some AAAs, and that's because as the contraction from the pandemic boom continues, we are seeing the industry as a whole struggle. Of course, great games can still happen, but as
there has been a contraction since the pandemic. You know what that means? Time to government engineer another pandemic. That's right. Let's get that money back into the system.
Publishers and devs scrabble about
Let
the place
the conspiracy
to fund those
theorists
games.
throw the shit
you
around.
are often the person losing out. What they need is growth and new opportunities, and now we have got the data for 2025, and based on that data, we may be waiting a while yet. If you're a discerning player, I think it's fair to say that games may never have been better for you. I mean, just take a look at OpenCritic's 2025 Hall of Fame. It's crazy, and it alone would give you several years worth of incredible games to play, even as, of course, decades of previous brilliant titles become more and more accessible. But people saying the industry was in crisis last year certainly do have a point, even though there were loads of great games. We had thousands of layoffs, dozens of studios closed, and a funding crisis with no solution in sight.
Jeez.
Nothing was changing to...
What does that chart say? What the hell was that? Quarterly gaming-related startup funding. Oh my god. Yeah. Well, you look at where the startup dollars are going, right? These investors and shit, they look for something with growth, right? They want to see, 10x growth on their money and shit like that. If they're not investing in the games industry, it's because they just don't see it growing at this time.
Solution in sight. Nothing was changing to push the money people towards funding new teams, new games, of course, new experiences for you. And all of this was compounded by the big thing that didn't come. Grand Theft Auto. Some analysts actually suggested that the knock-on effects of GTA not releasing meant...
It's funny, like GTA 6 is like this monster that's hovering out in the void, and everyone's afraid to launch their games at the same time as GTA. So every time GTA says, okay, this time we're going to launch in February of 2026 or whatever, everyone else scatters out of that fucking month because they don't want to launch in the same month that GTA does, and then GTA delays their shit again. So it's been, when are we going to get GTA? I don't know, GTA 6, maybe I'm a grandfather, my grandchildren will play the launch of GTA 6, and I'll tell them stories about how I was prepping for that launch for 32 years. But as of right now, I would not put any fucking house money on GTA's launch date.
$0.7 billion in sales moved from 2025 to 2026, with 700,000 fewer current-gen consoles sold. That's a shift that actually moved analyst predictions from marginal growth to a drop year on year.
Damn.
But somehow, they actually beat expectations. First though, I have a quick thing to mention that could save you or your business thousands. Now, I sign a load of documents every month when I'm running my business. And there are two ways that goes. It's either manual signatures, which are fiddly as hell, or dedicated signature tools, which, are kind of overpriced nightmares. And that's where today's sponsor, Odoo, comes in. You see, Odoo is an all-in-one management software for entrepreneurs. They handle invoicing, accounting, project management, websites, everything pretty much. But today, I'm showing you their signature app. It is dead simple. You upload your document, drag in your fields, you can set a signing order and automatic reminders so that nothing falls through the cracks. And then you send it. And on the other end, well, the recipient just clicks the link, signs on any device in seconds, and then you're done. There's no printing, no scanning, no faff. You can track everything in real time with notifications. It's legally compliant in over 100 countries, including Europe and the US. And here's what makes Odoo perfect for, normal businesses. your first app is free for life, and that includes unlimited hosting and support. If you need more, it's €19.90 a month per user for everything. And I mean every. It isn't per app. The one price gets you signatures, invoicing, accounting, project management, websites, inventory, the whole
I gotta start a
lot
business first, but then I need it.
Price. So stop chasing your signatures and stop overpaying for loads of single-purpose SaaS tools. Go to odoo.com and sort it out.
Here it is.
Yeah, you probably didn't think gaming would beat expectations, but I think it will make sense once you know the expectations.
Well, I was going to say, well, is it really a positive that gaming beat expectations, or were the expectations so abysmally low that, like the only thing they could do was really beat the expectations?
So, $60.7 billion US dollars. That is what the US games industry had in 2025, and it represented 1% growth. And that is what defied expectations. Now, per Circana's data, basically...
Wait, 1.4% growth was defying expectations? Man, they really thought it was going to take a shit. What the hell? That's a crazy freaking number to spend on games. What is wrong with you guys? Jesus, $60.7 billion? I mean, we're all dumping $15 a month into that shit.
Per Circana's data, basically the consensus expectation was an industry decline, not basically 1% growth, even though 1% growth is what I would certainly call stagnant as hell. Of course, though, it was a year with tariffs, delays, and cost of living increases that have hurt people's ability to spend money on what is an increasingly expensive hobby, especially if you need a few sticks of RAM or a GPU. God. But as it turns out, even just scraping by was difficult. So let's get into some of the juicy numbers.
I swear to God, owning a PC these days is like if you bought a home back before interest rate shot. So you bought a home like in 2021, you've gained so much value now for owning that home. But it's like the same with a PC. Like right now, if you own a PC that you already built before the RAM prices and the GPU prices all skyrocketed, you're like sitting on a gold mine. You're like, oh, thank God I own this PC because this thing would cost triple right now if I wanted to build it. It's like the same thing. It's crazy. PC market and housing market running hand in hand. If you own a PC in a home, hey, you're sitting pretty. You're sitting real pretty right now.
Into some of the juicy numbers. The Switch 2's release boosted hardware sales by 9% year-on-year, covering declines experienced by everyone else. But people just didn't keep spending because accessory sales were down 7%, and it seems the tariffs may have had an impact there. Then, on game content, things were stable. They were just about stable with a 1.4% increase. But there's a massive asterisk on that. The industry cash cow of mobile games grew by only 1%.
Thank God.
But subscription
Fuck that
services
industry.
like Game Pass and Fortnite Crew saw 20% growth in spending. So what we're essentially seeing is a bit of a slowdown in mobile, but stuff that gives you access to a big game library and live service boosters like your Fortnite Crew thing, those are comparatively cheap. People already know that they're playing those games, so basically they end up being an easy to justify purchase. But here's what matters, right? Growth did not come from game sales, and it didn't even come from microtransactions. It almost feels like every part of the games industry is weaker than ever right now. We're seeing audiences contract, the current generation of consoles is failing to expand. A few videos ago, we covered an executive, I believe Capcom, talking about the PlayStation 5 wall. Or barrier, I think was the specific that he used. But the point basically was, not enough people are moving from PS4 to PS5, and they are now feeling that in their game sales. So what we've basically seen thus far in the video is that overall, things are not as dire as they could have been, but they're still pretty dire because stagnancy is obviously bad.
Yeah, so I wonder what contributed to that 1% or 1.4% growth then. Was it just like a bunch of indie games that sold really well? What the fuck is this? Oh my god. Yeah, this is all the games industry. Look at it. It includes Blizzard, yes.
I'll tell you what, when we go and look at the year's best sellers, it is actually not that simple. And I think for many of us, there is a humongous win off the bat. I'll start with a win, and that is that the Titan has fallen. Call of Duty was not the best-selling game of last year. It didn't even make the top 3.
Wow. It
was beaten by Battlefield 6, NBA 2K26, Borderlands 4, and then we have Monster Hunter Wilds. Pretty interesting. It's actually the worst result in 2 decades for COD, and it's not the only...
Man, I wonder when the last time Battlefield beat COD. That's an interesting one. And then NBA... Why do people love NBA 2K so much? What is it with that shit? I think they build like out a career and a person or something.
Surprising detail that we see in this chart.
It's outside of my scope
Circana.
of gaming.
But you may be wondering, is this whole chart just made
Borderlands
up?
4, that's shocking. Yeah,
so
it is.
much of the industry actually hands over its sales data to Circana, and that is so that they, the industry, can get an accurate picture of what's going on. Yes, whenever you give over some of your sales data, I mean, there's a little bit of risk in that, sure, you're giving over something that is an asset. But what you get back is, well, Circana's data sets and analysis, which are really big. You know, if you're going to be planning games, planning how you're going to deploy development teams with tens, hundreds of millions, hundreds of developers, you need the best data you can get. So that's why the industry basically all kind of participates in the likes of Circana. Now, what we see here is all of these games compared in terms of pure sales. It means we can see who beat who, but of course, we don't see the cost of sales. We don't see the profit margin of these games. As an example, we know that Monster Hunter Wilds effectively stalled through the latter two-thirds of the year, selling around 11 million copies. So it stands to reason that the others did sell more than that. But because we've got no data from the likes of Nexon or Ubisoft, we can't see the impact of Arc Raiders or Assassin's Creed Shadows on this list. But what we can see is trends. And one of the big ones is for PC. And it's that PC releases matter because 17 of the top 20 games had a PC release.
Let's go. Let's go. PC, finally, the superior gaming race. Everyone's starting to see it now. Xbox ain't even trying to make an Xbox anymore. They're like, we're just going to make a PC in the shape of a console and ship it to your asses from now on because everybody knows the PC is the way to go. That's the truth. These console wars. Who cares about console wars? That's a war that's not even worth fighting anymore. Look, PlayStation's in a weird spot, honestly, because if they're not going to sell these consoles at a major loss at this point, there's going to be no chance at people buying enough of these things to buy the games later on that really lead to the profit. So I don't know what's going to happen with consoles in the future. But I mean, now we have all this cross-platform shit going on. So I guess that's PlayStation's way in, is they'll be like, well, we're kind of like a PC too, because you can play all the PC games on us as well, thanks to Microsoft Xbox going crossover to PlayStation now.
Obviously, a little bit of a shame about the whole hardware market collapsing in response to that, but consoles do actually still matter as well. That's because compared to 2024, we went from one console-only release to 3. And considering that one of those was EA Sports College Football, it's even more important. You see, in 2024, that one game reportedly spiked Series S sales by just completely bucking the trend of every other sports game by having an only current generation release.
Well, it's because I don't know if Bellular knows this, and maybe he's unaware, but college football had been gone for like the better part of a decade, maybe longer. No college football games were allowed to be made because of name, image, and likeness of the players, because the universities couldn't pay the players for them being in the game, and then it was deemed to be illegal for the colleges to make money off of the players' images without the players having any rights to them themselves. And then now there's NIL. Now you could pay players. So then the game was re-released. So now College Football 2025 came back out, and everyone had been waiting for a college football game for like 10 fucking years, so that spiked sales.
And as much as the Series S is, a little bit small, not exactly strong, it does, of course, count as current
Since
gen.
2012,
that
first
notion,
one, yeah.
25 was also the year where we're finally seeing current gen games deliver. So 11 current gen and PC exclusive games are on the list, up from 6 the year prior. And many of those, like say Monster Hunter Wilds, made big production bets that next generation console sales would have more uptake than they currently have. And that's the problem. They have not had that uptake. And of course, that's for two broad reasons. I'd say number one, price hikes, so, all the economic stuff. We're very much not used to consoles getting more expensive over time. Usually they get less expensive. And then, of course, GTA, because GTA would massively accelerate adoption. So those have basically robbed quite a lot of the current gen only games of a lot of their potential customers.
Sleeping giant.
But it does mean we finally reached a point where enough of a platform exists to allow for the mass sales of new current gen exclusive games. What does that show then? Well, it shows that audiences are engaging with new games. You see, in 2024, this list had just 7 games that were released in prior years. As of 2025, that's down to just 3. I mean, at this point, Minecraft and GTA 5 may as well just be set in stone in the sales chart. That's
my son's favorite game. We get it off of Game Pass, though. I wonder how that counts towards this whole thing. Because we own Minecraft through Game Pass. I never actually bought Minecraft itself, so I don't know how that counts.
One is seemingly a validation of Xbox's multi-plat strategy, though, because 4 years after release, Forza Horizon 5 has got itself back in the charts because of its PS5 release. And as neat as that is, there is a data point that I think is more intriguing. It's actually the most intriguing data point here. Because while 2025 may have been the year seen as many as basically the big year of small teams and lower price points, well, looking at this list, you certainly wouldn't know it. While what we covered in this video about the price of games on Steam actually decreasing on average in terms of what people are actually buying, that very much is different in consoles, because almost every game in this list launched at $70. Every sports game, every big franchise AAA, though there were some exceptions. Elden Ring Night Rain and Helldivers were sitting there at the co-op standard price of $40, then Oblivion and Split Fiction are at $50. So certainly we have came a long way from how we started last year. $70 is basically the current norm. Last year, though, we were worried about $80 games. Some people were even talking about $100 games. So basically, looking at this chart, I think it's fairly clear that the industry has got cold feet rolling out $80+ games. I mean, base price at least. But 2025 did seem to show that a lower price could succeed, because we saw the likes of Silksong that were near guaranteed to sell.
Yeah,
but also games like Expedition 33 and Mafia the Old
I never
Country,
played the Silksong franchise at all, but I know people freaking love that shit.
Expected to sell.
But you only play WoW, right?
Or at least, they weren't a surefire bet. Yet, each one of those games did sell well, and Take-Two even said that...
I wonder where Midnight Sales ranks on this list, right? Because that's kind of spread out. It's all pre-orders and shit. I wonder how the Midnight franchise will look compared to all these other releases.
Mafia outperformed expectations. Here's what their CEO Strauss told the games business, quote, "If you give customers a great narrative experience that's a lot of fun, somewhat contained, and at a fair price, then you can have the perfect result." That's music to my ears, and he's not wrong. But it also doesn't change the fact that the vast majority of games on the bestsellers list are still $70 RRPs. And I think that's evidence that mass audiences, the kinds of people who just buy 1 or 2 games a year, as we previously covered, just turn up, spend $70 on the latest iteration of the game that they play, maybe that is the football game and the Call of Duty, though a bit less Call of Duty this time round, and they just keep on buying and playing like that.
Maybe that's why all these companies keep making sequels, is because the customer's spoken. They just want sequels. That's what it looks like. Like, everybody wants the next NBA, the next Call of Duty, the next Battlefield, and those are what's going to sell, so that's what they'll keep making.
But with Expedition and Mafia, we're seeing the other options. And more than anything, in the tiny part of the market that matters to us, that evidence may pay off going forward. Why? Well, because as the market finally gets the shot in the arm that it needs in 2026, developers and publishers will need evidence like this to fund the games that you and I will want to play. The games that are scoped, like Mafia, like Expedition 33. With sales evidence like that, they know what you will want. Although, of course, convincing someone to pay for it is another challenge altogether, and still somewhat of an unsolved one. You may think that you buying a game can be the difference between whether a studio gets to keep making games or dies. And sometimes it is. But the truth, the reality, is that long before you even get that chance, investors, publishers, and funding rounds are what determine whether the studio gets to live or not. And right now, the trend is that publishers are only willing to fund projects that are nearly complete or that come from proven teams. To get to that point, you kinda need to fund your own development, and that is inherently prohibited.
Funding your own development's dangerous. Ask Ashes of Creation how that went. Yep, not too good.
For that to change, for investors to back independent publishers, for new publishers to spring up, there needs to be confidence across the whole industry, not just in live service subscription services, mobile games, and things like that. No, it needs to be broad. Grand Theft Auto 6 will see a bunch of investors hoping to get a piece of the action after the fact. Of course, that doesn't guarantee that the money will go where we want it, but it may mean that a few more developers at least get more of a chance. Though that being said, I do actually think I've got to do something fun. I think I've got to ad-lib a little bit of doomerism to the end, because that's why we watch YouTube, for doom and anxiety. not really, but this is a little in my head. Let's just say, for whatever reason, games investment goes up, game funding goes up, and hopefully it does. I hope that
Sure, it will.
you've got more of the hooded horse people who are saying, hey, we don't want Gen AI slop games. But when I think about the sorts of big investors that, say, in the COVID era were pumping a bunch of money into games, I think they want to
BlackRock
invest
and
in
Vanguard.
games companies that have a robust AI strategy.
Yep.
And I don't know. I mean, I think that AI stuff can be a really good, useful tool, but I don't think it's the magical, miracle thing that some of the investment community thinks it could
It's
be.
not.
So whenever that money does rotate back into games, I wonder how many companies will have to do a whole big public dance.
AI in general has been way oversold. Maybe it gets there eventually, but right now all the promises of what it does and productivity and all that, it can help. But it's been sold as almost like, well, you can run a giant Fortune 500 company with 2 employees now because AI can do everything else. And it's just not the case yet at all. So yeah, all these investors are pushing it really hard, but it's moving faster than AI is advancing. That's for sure.
About their amazing AI strategy, just to, convince the money people to hand some of it over. We will see. And speaking of we will see, is Ubisoft so over, or are we so back? Who knows? But in this video, you'll learn about how they're driving away some of their top talent. Like literally people who have ran entire franchises and gotten Ubisoft out of many, many sticky spots, who very much, it seems, been pushed out of their jobs. Which doesn't really bode well. It's a fun, spicy video. You can watch it next.
Nice. Yeah, a good video overall. Interesting stuff on where the industry's heading. What does it mean for WoW and everything else? I mean, I wonder like I said, what midnight game sales look like. But WoW is considered to be one of those, franchises where it's not really like innovating on anything. We're just adding expansions onto a 20-plus-year-old game at this point. Is Blizzard willing to make a new franchise or anything else? It doesn't look like it. They had that one Survivor franchise that they canceled, if you guys remember, not too long ago. They were working on some new IP, and it's gone now. So they're just building on the shit they already have. That seems to be the trend. There's indie game developers out there that are still making stuff, and that's the new IP you get. But in terms of like a size, like a company the size of Blizzard or Microsoft, they seem to have more of a stomach for, we're just going to iterate on the IP that already exists. And if you love WoW, I guess it's a good thing, right? Because Warcraft's an established IP, they're going to keep getting new shit for it. A nice video overall, though, from Bellular.